Hi, everyone, and welcome to part two of today's Fish and Feathers presentation. We are so excited to have you all on joining us, and we're going to just go on ahead and get right started now that it's a little past two. Our first speaker today is Everett, so we're happy again to hear about all of your experiences, and feel free to take it away, Everett, and let us know how your summer was.
Awesome, thank you guys. So I'm Everett. I was at Cuyahoga Valley National Park this last summer. Um, how do you want to do the? Yeah, there we go. So Cuyahoga Valley National Park, a little bit of background on the park, just because it's kind of a little interesting compared to some of the other parks that folks have been to, is it actually used to be like extremely polluted. A lot of used to be parts of it a dump site. The middle photo there you see on the slide is actually the river, the Cuyahoga River, on fire due to that level of pollution that was in the valley. There's like some fun things that we use in the visitor center sometimes, like little phrases. One of them is if you put the your arm in the river and you took your arm out, it would be covered with black sludge afterwards. Another one, it's a little darker, but it was said that if you fell in the river, you wouldn't drown, instead you would decompose. So it's a little ominous sounding, but that's how the river used to be. So if you click one more, you can see the restoration process and how the park is now a really beautiful site, a lot of wetlands, stuff like that, beautiful rock formations, waterfalls, all sorts of things that came out of this area. Because of that, a lot of the things that are around here are called things after the families that lived there, the businesses that were there. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of like history that's human history, a part of the park's past, which I think is a pretty unique aspect of it. So onward. So each of these little challenge and programs have another picture associated. So the first one is the Junior Ranger Angler challenges. We did three separate ones. If you click through, it'll show the different photos for all the events. So that's one of our Junior Ranger programs. That one's the private fishing programs. So that's with a catfish. Next one, we have over 200 different Junior Ranger angler badges were given out. So that's a kind of a fun statistic that we had a lot of people pledging in. The next one, we had two different forest exploration programs. So that was getting kids out to look for worms in the dirt and twigs and anything they found alive inside the forest to kind of get them more in contact with nature and stuff like that. Next one is the Fun with Fossils program. So there's a lot of fossils that are around here in the park, and they're pretty easy to find. So it's fun taking kids out to look for fossils in the water that you can actually go through and show them what the fossils were and that sort of thing, which is was really fun. Next, we had two different field days with games. I actually came up with a game day manual for um, our office, so that we have different games and their rules, and it's a whole manual lined out with all of the games that we did, which was pretty cool. Next, I did three different bird banding public events with one of them was our volunteers. So our volunteers throughout the park came over and were able to experience a bird banding lesson and get more involved with the park bird banding stuff. Next, I had seven just casual bird banding days. So I was actually in contact with our in-park biologist, Maria Marr. She is a fantastic ornithologist, a great person, and she allowed me to come and bird band every week with them out at the bird banding station. So I got to band my own birds, which was really cool by the end of the season, but I learned a lot from them, which was really cool. I also had a bird banding hike. Yes, lots and lots. And then I had yeah, so a bird banding hike. There's the little EFTA logo we made with some of the public bird banding events. 80 more plus birds that we got out of those banding just on the banding days, which was cool. I was actually tasked with getting done a ranger talk on banding, which was a really cool opportunity. I'm actually giving tomorrow. So still more on the docket list for the rest of the season, but that's something that I finished up this week, the actual document for the ranger talk, but that'll be on birding and giving a bird quiz, which is really cool. We also did 6 garden beds for the environmental education program. That's Ranger Josh at her bird banding event. Um, so 6 garden beds we built out of some wood and stuff for a garden that's out here at the park, and 3 invasive plant removals, and 2 career days, one of which was today. That would, for the full summer, is 10 summer camps and groups, which amounted to 246 adults and 454 different kids individually talked to, which is crazy cool number. And is, yeah, it's really exciting. We had a lot of kids this summer, which was really, really fun. You can, there's those garden beds. And I think, yeah, invasive plant removal. And then the last photo is just more garden beds because it was an interesting process. So a couple of other things. What was learned and what was hard about this experience? Hear me out. Both answers are kids. So I learned a lot, and it was also very difficult for, at least at the beginning, to let myself be more flexible. If I had a lesson plan, if I had even my junior ranger angler programs, it's like, well, this is what we have on the table. I want to teach a kid about every single thing on here, and they need to learn every single thing that I have to tell them. But going along with how the kids' brains work is sometimes they know stuff that they don't necessarily need you to tell them, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they're really interested in one specific aspect. And if you can get the hook in that aspect and really teach them one specific thing that they're really interested in, that's a lot better than them being not as interested in a bunch of other stuff. So, learning to be more flexible and getting to the kids' level of whatever level that is, which varied a lot more than I expected to. Even in the same age, 2 kids were completely different. So that was something that was hard at first, but once I let myself just go with their flow, ended up being a really good learning opportunity. We had some other challenges like the weather. It was either raining or heat advisories, and having to change around our programs to fit that was difficult sometimes, but ended up being more learning opportunities. And also, we dealt with the wildfire smog, which canceled a few of our activities throughout last week, but we managed to bring stuff in from the outside, have PPE and all that sort of stuff. But yes, that was a very interesting challenge. So one highlight, I don't know why it's just calling there. There should be other photos. There we go. Okay. So one of my highlights is just the crew that I had with me this summer. I really enjoyed getting to know the people at the VMO, which is the Volunteer Management Office. So we all had a good time together, just in general, doing all of our projects and tasks together. So that was just a general highlight for the experience. And then event highlight, it'll go. Colin's so special. I don't know why he has his own transition. Um, but the event highlight for me was definitely the bird banding. I got a lot of experience one-on-one with these wild birds, and getting to the process of putting up the nets, taking them down, getting the birds out of the nets, banding them, writing everything down, uploading that info. Like every single aspect of it was something that I learned throughout the weeks. And I was really grateful to be able to get to band them myself and get really hands-on with the birds and do all the measurements for them. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to have that opportunity or not, but it was really, really awesome. And so I'm really grateful for that. So it was a big highlight of my trip. So a couple final thoughts. This is just solidified for me, wanting to stay in this career field and be with people and environments that echo kind of my interests and things that I care about and I'm passionate about, environment, conservation work, science-based biology, all of that sort of stuff. And being with people who also kind of fit in that sort of mindset as well was really important to me. So yeah, I really enjoyed this summer. I'm glad that I'm still going to be able to be here for a little bit. Um, because I'm not finished yet. And I hope that I can continue to be with people and get to do experiences like this in the future that are very similar because I had a very good time. Yay.
Nice job, Everett. And thank you for sharing. We'll have Desi present next.
Hi, everyone. So I'm over here in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area, which does not mean that I'm in the state of Delaware. I'm in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. It's the northern half of the border between the two states. And I'm honestly, I picked this site mostly because I really love this place. I grew up doing canoeing trips here, and so it meant a lot to me, but I only ever knew it from the river. And now I'm very aware that not only is this park 40 miles of river, it is also 70,000 acres of land and 28 miles of the Appalachian Trail, which actually means that it has three different National Park Service designations. The Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area is all of the 70,000 acres of land. Middle Delaware National Scenic River is the 40 miles of river. And the Appalachian National Scenic Trail is our 28 miles of the AT. And in, of course, the tons of other miles that the AT actually covers. Um, the next. Okay. So I'm not really a history person, but this summer has actually been really eye-opening in terms of understanding the history of this park. So this park hasn't been around that long, and it was actually acquired in, I believe, the 70s uh, for a dam that was going to be built and actually going to flood a large portion of the river. But eventually that project was deemed untenable and the land was given to the Park Service. So now it is the largest undammed river east of the Mississippi with about 4 million visitors each year. So getting to understand a little bit about the history of this place and why, like how it exists the way it does, in particular, the geological like a geological scale, right? There's a lot of underwater fossils in the park, and the bottom left photo there is our iconic water gap. Essentially, the river has cut through the Kittatinny mountain range, creating a over 1,000-foot drop between the top of the mountain and the surface of the river there, but also just through human history. So there's been about 10,000 years of Native American archaeological records found here in the park. So people have been living in this river basin for 10,000 years at least. But then also the individual experience. How do people feel about the park today? What does all of that, a culminating history, mean for the experiences that people create now? So on top of all of that, it's just been a lot of exploring the park. Next. And that has meant a lot of waterfalls. Keep going. This is not even half of the waterfalls that I've seen in the park. Just keep going. There's a lot of them. So just getting to explore the park has been absolutely amazing, and it's a really gorgeous place. So out of the programs I've led, I'm going to touch on a few of these in particular. The fishing programs have been probably the most biggest thing I've been working on throughout being here. One of my bigger things for this is that all of our fishing weights before I got here were lead. Turns out that even in the past year that they had found at least 2 eagles sick with lead poisoning in the last year. So I was very proud to be able to focus a lot of my fishing programming on safe handling of fish, making sure that people are being respectful towards their catch when they are and not just kind of throwing them back in, but also switching all of our gear and equipment away from lead. So being able to get all of that out of our fishing equipment and then being able to teach people that attended the fishing programs about that. The birding walks in particular, I got to lead 2 of them, are a newer program to the park. Asking around from the interpretation staff, none of them can really remember there being a birding program. So that was kind of a new thing. And for that, I kind of wanted to do something special. So Thank you, AG, for the idea of a Zine, because I forgot those were a thing. But you'll see the two photos there. I made a Zine, not about what birds are there here in the park, but instead about the process of identifying a bird. So the first few pages are talking about habitat, talking about time of year, talking about sound, and then talking about the actual parts of the animal to help identify them. So handing those out has been really fun, and a lot of people have been enjoying them. And my big one I really, really want to talk about is my Firefly program. If you speak to me after this, you will find out I am now officially obsessed with fireflies. So there's around my housing in particular, throughout the summer, there has been an insane number of fireflies, like probably more than I'll ever see in the total span of my life after this. So I kind of deep dived into it and decided I was going to run a firefly program. And that led me to find out that there were no proper records of firefly species in the park. So there is a database that lists all the species that are in every single park. And for whatever reason, fireflies were never listed. For the record, they're really hard to identify down to the species level, so I get that, but not a single one was even listed. So I went through different databases and found different species of fireflies that could possibly be in the park, compiled information on them, logged presence in other nearby areas and states, and different conservation recommendations. And those have now been all submitted into the park's archives for future records if they ever do look into trying to actually identify and properly conserve them in particular. I was supposed to have two of them. One of the programs got smoked out by the wildfire, but my finally getting to run the program this Saturday. So very excited for that. More click. So not just the programs that I'm leading, but also programs that I've assisted with. PSAR, so that stands for Preventative Search and Rescue, is one of the things that some of our team members will be doing, being out on the river, roving the river, making sure that folks are wearing life jackets, making sure that everyone's safe and okay, checking that people aren't swimming in areas that are known to be particular hazards, especially. Besides that, the Sojourn was a really cool one for me. And some of you remember me bringing that up from one of our weekly check-ins, but it's a week-long trip down the river. We paddled with about 95 people on the day that we joined them for the Delaware Water Gap. And it was really great getting to talk with folks because I already know from my work in outdoor ed just how important it is to get people connecting with the outdoors in order for them to care about it. But over the dozen plus people I talked with on that day, when I asked them, what brought you out here for this? What brought you out here on this sojourn? Every single one of them was able to cite some kind of experience from being a kid, from growing up outside, or just even one particular day that really meant a lot to them, getting outside either in the park or in other places. And so it was really great to have that in-person reminder of, yeah, this isn't just a theory, this is real. People really do make a difference in how they act and behave around our natural spaces when they have those connections from early on. Also talking about volunteers. If there's anything I've learned from this about national parks, it is that holy cow, volunteers are important. They matter so much. Preservation and interpretation of different places like Walpack Town Center and Van Campen Inn, which are both different sites that were here before the park was created. They would barely have any preservation and interpretation happening now if it wasn't for volunteers, just because there's not enough staff in the park service to actually be properly teaching and taking care of it. Without those volunteers, there would be so much that we're losing in this park. Not to mention they're helping out with preventative search and rescue. They're helping out with different events. They're roving some of our trails. They're helping out with cleaning up different areas. They're doing the work of so many. It's amazing just getting to talk with people who are local, who not just get to enjoy the National Recreation Area, but have decided that they want to take on stewardship roles to take care of it. So it's been amazing getting to talk with and get to know all of those folks. So my ups and downs. First off, everyone that works here is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love everyone, between my supervisor, Neil, everyone, the PSAR folks, so Kristen and Chance, Martin, Cindy, John, Jody, who's working on all of our visual stuff for social media, especially, Jolene, the other intern that's here, she's the CVA, so the Community Volunteer Ambassador. She's really cool, been great to work with her. Jennifer's been a great source of knowledge. Everyone has been absolutely amazing to work with. Incredibly kind, incredibly knowledgeable. Time on the river, nothing beats a good day on the river, honestly. A good day in the sun on the river tops everything. Um, and then being in my housing, that has actually been one of my favorite things is I've so far gotten to watch 7 Eastern Phoebe babies. You can see 4 of them there. 4 turkey chicks, 3 crows, and a buck that for whatever reason is not afraid if you yell at it. Worried for that guy. We'll see how he does. But so much wildlife. The fireflies, especially, it's kind of what got me started on them. I had a black bear show up one time. I finally saw my first ruby-throated hummingbirds. I, for the longest time, actually grew up not thinking there were no hummingbirds on the East Coast, and I have now been harassed by multiple times by hummingbird. So that the housing and being up here has just been absolutely stunning. Some of my downs have been kind of delays and disorientation. So it took until early July for me to get my PIV card to get access to the system, and that kind of didn't help with me getting acquainted and figuring out how things work in a lot of ways. It meant I wasn't really able to like reach out to folks as easily without an email. I was not able to access files, and so that made things a little bit difficult. I decided towards the end of the program that I was going to make a big document and print out several files that I wish I had had when I first started, and I'm leaving them in a file for the next EFTA intern. So Jose, I'm going to leave that somewhere, and I'm going to ask you that you mention it to whoever comes after me. But yeah, so just leaving a bunch of resources behind, making sure that they're able to get oriented a lot faster than me. Housing. I love it. I genuinely love it. But I have been living in a house in the woods completely alone, and that's a little scary. um, Very cool experience. And I think it was something I actually needed. I think it was something I really needed to just kind of finally do and get over and realize that, being alone isn't as scary as long as you can learn to find ways to be comfortable. So I think that that's just been like a really opening experience for me. For all of you that have access to the slides, this is like a really short video. Again, like I said, I'm obsessed with fireflies now. This is the closest I have been able to get to explaining just how insane the fireflies have been here. In June in particular, it's like watching a laser show. It's the most insane thing. This is only showing a fraction of the ones you'll see in real life when you're standing there. All right. And my last slide. So walking into this program, I did not necessarily want to focus on, being able to run educational programs. It's something I have a lot of experience with. One more click. I instead had this overarching question of what does it take? What does it take to be able to run a park this size, to be able to manage this kind of landscape, this kind of programming, all of these different types of historical and natural resources? And I was kind of told in a lot of ways from the beginning that, the thing that it takes is flexibility, being able to go with the flow, being able to move with the wind. And I don't think that's 100% accurate. I think a more accurate representation would be to say it takes resilience to be able to withstand difficulty, to be able to put your foot down when needed. Sometimes you've got to tell that person who's visiting the park, no, you cannot do that here. Sometimes you've got to be able to really push forward to be able to get something done. But it also means resilience to be able to go with the changing current when you have to. And I think underneath all of that, it also requires a well-developed sense of place and a deeper understanding of why do we do this work. I think you can't properly go into all of this without thinking, why am I here? Why does this matter? And why does it mean that I should be doing this? And I think everyone that I've worked with here, everyone that I've talked with here has really, really shown me just how deep that kind of love for this place can be, and how much that can really be your guiding arrow in terms of, conservation and being able to withstand difficulties and being able to continue doing the work that needs to be done through everything. So Thank you to everyone so far, all the EFTA staff and all of the Delaware Water Gap staff.
Yay. Good job, Dizzy. Hi guys. I'm Imani, and this summer I was the first Fish and Feathers intern working out of Fort Washington Park. Yeah, so a little history on Fort Washington Park for those of you who don't know. It was basically a part of War of 1812, where the British set fire to DC, the capital, the White House, and they basically went up the Potomac River and planned to do the same to Virginia and Maryland. Before Fort Washington, there was a structure called Warburton Manor, and the soldiers here basically decided to blow it up because they realized they were outnumbered from the British. And then 11 years later, Fort Washington was built as a like basically like just in case it happened again, they were ready for it. But that never happened. So it was basically built for no reason. um, and then yeah, so it's because it wasn't used in war, it's been very well preserved, and it's over 100 no, it's over 200 years. And yeah, now people have been using it for recreational activities like walking their dog, fishing, having picnics, things like that. Yeah, so here are some of my stats. I working out of Fort Washington, I had the opportunity and the privilege of visiting 12 sites. I was a part of National Capital Parks East, right? Right? Okay. Um, and because of that, all the interns that basically worked in the parks part of NACE, we were allowed to visit different sites, historic sites around the DMV, and yeah, connect and network. And it was really fun. One of my favorites was going to the Patuxent National Wildlife Research Refuge. And we also visited the USGS Bee Lab, which was pretty cool, and got to see so many preserved bees. And yeah, that's my picture. Enoch was also there. I also had the opportunity of visiting sites like Kenilworth, and Enoch that day showed me around, and it was a really cool site that I will be visiting again. And then that's when I seen my yellow crown night heron, so that was pretty cool. I here at Fort Washington. Oh, sorry, sorry, Enoch. Here at Fort Washington, sometimes I get carried away. And in the midst of it, in trying to follow a great crested flycatcher, I found two ticks on me. None of them bit me, which was good, but I never had ticks on me before Colorado, before this year, so yeah, kind of spooked me. I also was able to make 4 programs, and that was based out of Fort Washington Park and also Piscataway Park, um, which was pretty cool. I enjoyed working out of both. 42 birds encountered. Most of them were the first time I ever seen them. Merlin has became my best friend, and I'm addicted to birding no matter where I go. Even in my backyard, I've like set out a bowl for the birds to drink water so I can kind of like attract them and stalk them from my patio. So yeah. I also had the opportunity to do 5 social media posts, and not just for Washington Park, but also Piscataway Park. So that's been very enjoyable. I worked out of 4 sites, which was also pretty fun because they're all so unique, and they all look different, even though they're so like close by. Um, I have met everybody there and kept really close communication with them, which has been pretty fun too. The whole summer, I have talked to 406 people, which is a lot, and I'm very proud of. Um, I've also had to endure 2 heat waves, probably even 3 here. Um, the heat in the DMV is pretty brutal, I will say that. Also working here, um, my supervisor Chris thinks she's in the back, but I blurred her out. She believes that I am a wildlife magnate here at the fort. Her 3 years working here, this is the most wildlife she's ever encountered. And I unintentionally attract just baby birds. We just had a lot of baby birds in the fort, either eastern phoebes falling out of the nest, or recently I just had to herd 7 baby wild turkeys in the fort, and Chris and I had to lead them back to their mom. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, it's just unpredictable here. I also attended 6 events between NACE, which was pretty fun. It was either cookout. There's a lot of fun events that goes on, and I get to meet a lot of new people. And me and Enoch being the only Fish and Feathers intern, the other interns are like history focused. So it was cool getting to speak with them and seeing what type of work they're doing around the different parks. Um, yeah, Fort Washington is also notorious for animal dumping. So we recently just had somebody dump their bunny, but luckily we were able to rescue it. We also have suffered tremendously with lanternflies, and a lot of people mistaking them as ticks, and I thought that was hilarious. Um, the heat is brutal to not only humans but also animals. And this summer, it almost claimed the life of one of our fort groundhogs, but me and another ranger set out water for it, and it survived. So, yay. One of the goals here working at Fort Washington was to teach a lot of kids and be a part of their first times. I wish a lot of the first times that I had this year, I wish I had them when I was younger or experienced them as a kid rather than an adult. And I was a part of 4 children's first time fishing or either birding, and that meant a lot to me. Next. Yeah, so programs and events. So between my 2 birding programs and my 2 fishing programs, I had over 140 people come up to my table. And yeah, I attended 6 events. 2 were birding, 2 were fishing. I had 1 birding at Piscataway and it was raining, but a lot of people still showed up, which was nice. 2 fishing events, 2 fishing events, and then 5 visitor center days. So yes, I'm the first Fish and Feathers intern here, but I was also to help out on the site in the visitor center and contribute with like the gift shop and redirecting people. And it was pretty fun to play tour guide and kind of be able to answer questions about the history or the site that I was at for Washington, and because I didn't know anything about this site just 2 months ago, so it was pretty cool to see my growth in real time. Um, and yeah, the people that came up to me, I was like other people said, I was teaching kids, but I was also teaching adults, and the adults were teaching me. So during my tabling events, a lot of adults came up. Some of them were in the Navy, and they taught me how to make new knots. So I learned how to make a lot of knots that day for my first fishing event, and I thought it was pretty cool. And it was a good way to connect with the community. Hurdles. I think this slide was the hardest for me because I didn't really have a lot of challenges, and if I did, I always found a way to overcome them. But the first was imposter syndrome. Like a lot of you, I this is a historic site, and I'm not really too history focused. So I came here being the only Fish and Feathers intern, and I kind of felt out of place. I felt like I couldn't relate to the rangers that were here, but it ended up being a trade-off system where my first month here, I did my homework on the history, learned my stuff, and whatever I had questions about the site or Piscataway Park, they were able to answer it for me, and it was kind of like an in-person Google situation thing going on. And because of that, I was allowed to share my bird knowledge with them. And now they know more about the nature aspect of Fort Washington, because I've been here and I just yapped to them about a lot of it all day, every day, whether that's fishing or birding. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that trade-off aspect that I had of them. And I also learned that environmental science is history between the species that you see today and the type of recreational uses the Potomac was used back then from the indigenous people, and how they got food and stuff like that, and the native plants. I think it all plays a part into history, what was then and what is still today. So I enjoyed learning that. Working weekends was also pretty hard because I felt like I was always off schedule, or like it scrambled my brain, or I felt like my summer didn't really feel like a summer, but that was just the first couple weeks. I quickly got over that, because work never felt like work. So yeah, that kind of it helped a lot. Next is the advertisement constraints. So unfortunately, we were only allowed to post on Facebook, and it kind of like I had to kind of like blindly make social media posts, and I didn't know. I'm not on Facebook, so I didn't know who to make the post, or like how to engage the people on Facebook. I couldn't make reels, I couldn't make TikToks. We don't use Instagram, so that was a challenge. Like, who's gonna see my post? Will they even come? Like, just making drafts and trying to figure out my posts and things like that. Weather was also a big thing. If it wasn't hot, it was rainy, and if it wasn't rainy, there was smoke from the Canadian wildfires. So yeah, switching my program around, I had to be really flexible, and I had to be willing to change my program and what I was willing to do. So I learned a lot of things this summer, but these were some of my favorite: how to cater social media posts to the public. If it's not a good picture, or if it's just words, people are gonna scroll past it. So I made it my duty to make it a little bit interesting to where they stop and they read it, and hopefully they come to my event. The logistics of planning my event, I worked independently a lot here, and it has helped me grow. And I loved the idea of being my own boss and basically doing anything I want with the tools that I have. And because of that, I was able to add an aspect of me, and I was able to add art, make art, and include it to my programs, which I loved. It made it more personal, and I was able to use that and connect with the kids. So that was enjoyable. Accommodate how different sites operate. Like I said, all the sites that I worked out of are unique, and I learned something from each. So next is DMV history as a DMV implant. I have lived here for the 4 years, but I recently became a resident almost 2 years ago. So I'm officially a resident here in the DMV. And I have learned more about the history now that I'm a resident, than I ever did first moving here. And I unintentionally educate family and friends around me about the knowledge that I've learned here as well. One of the parts that I also learned about is like the indigenous culture within Maryland, and how the Piscataway people at Piscataway Park still use the park for ceremonies and things, which I thought was really cool. Just because indigenous culture is oftentimes there's like a notion that they're extinct or they no longer exist, like things like that. And I think it's pretty cool that still even today, they use their land, their sacred land, for ceremonies. Yeah, I met some rangers that are focused in fishing, so I learned a lot about fishing regulations, how to work our our register. It took some time, but I know how to work it now. So yeah, network and outreach independently. Like I said, a lot of my work here has been independent, and I have learned to take lead and take charge. And if I wanted to shadow somebody or do work off site, I was allowed to. And I learned how to connect and communicate on my own. How to blog. I think this was one of my favorite things that I learned how to do. WordPress was a hassle to work with in the beginning, but now I know how to do it and now I can put it on my resume. I also love reading everybody else's blogs and just having a portfolio of everything that I did this summer is pretty cool. The next one is Fort Washington bird hotspots. My first day here, I kind of judged a book by its cover because there's not a lot of trees in the fort, so I assumed I would only see vultures, bald eagles, crows, which is nothing's wrong with that, but I expected to see a variety of more birds, and by the end of my internship, I have been proven wrong. I've seen a lot of variety of birds, like an American goldfinch and there's a lot of cardinals and other birds that I haven't seen for the first time, so that's been pretty fun. Inclusivity is vital. I'm the first, probably not the first person, but I'm the only person that looks like me here at this site, and it has shown that representation matters a lot. People come up to me and they ask what I do. When I tell them what I do, they share their stories. Okay, I'll try to hurry up. So sorry. They share their stories about fishing, and it's really nice to connect with them. And yeah, because I'm the first Fish and Feathers intern, and I have worked both at Fort Washington and Piscataway Park. I have been the glue to these parks where they have roved there, but they never actually like spoke to each other because they didn't really need to. And because I had events there, I was able to connect them and we were able to get a tour and speak with them and how they're in communication. So yeah, next please. And yeah, last slide, thank you. This internship has been a very great experience for me. I remember wanting it so bad, and I'm so glad that I got the position. And I learned everything that I learned here. Shout out to my my supervisor, Chris. I truly believe that the people you work with matters, and it really shapes your experience. Shout out to Jose for visiting. The people, all of you that I met. This has been a really great experience, and I've learned a lot that I probably will never shut up about. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Amani. Awesome job. And I love all the photos. Next, we'll have Gabe.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hopefully the Wi-Fi is good. I'm in my hotel right now. I'll talk about that in a couple slides, but my name's Gabriel, and I had the opportunity of working here at Gulf Islands National Seashore, specifically in the Fort Pickens area, which you can see on that bottom picture right there. That's going to be one of our historic forts we have here, and it's going to date back to the 1800s. It takes place during the Civil War period as well. You can go to the next slide, please. So we'll see this big map of areas I actually got to work around here in Pensacola. So down at Fort Pickens, we were at the way bottom for Santa Rosa Island. That's where I was usually stationed with most of my programs. To the left, we have Perdido Key, where I got to do some bird surveys and look at birds around those shores in a beach called Johnson Beach. And then right above Fort Pickens is another fort called Fort Barrancas. Um, this I did get to visit once, and it's around the Naval Air Station here in Pensacola. And it's just another one of those forts that play a huge importance in terms of protecting Pensacola Bay back then. And then on the right side of Gulf Breeze, that's the Naval Live Oaks area. That's where park headquarters is. So I got to visit there. We almost got to do our kayak programs there, but due to weather, we had some cancellations from that. Next slide, please. But yeah, here at Fort Pickens, we had various programs and events. These ranged from our historic events to our nature programs. We had things like The Spanish Are Coming and Guardian of the Gulf. And then the ones I primarily focused on were called Coastal Curiosities and Secrets of the Seashore. We'd go ahead and bring out tables, bring out some of our Gulf resources that we have around here, and we just really educated the people who visited us. We also did a lot of these at the beach, a place called Langdon Beach. So it was nice to say I got to work just being out at the beach. We also did our fishing events. We did one called Let's Go Fishing. We also got to partner up with Perdido Key Association for World Ocean Day. So we went all the way to Perdido Key, set up a table. That's actually that top right picture there. And it was just cool because it wasn't just us. We saw a lot of different programs. So it was nice to collaborate and actually see what types of resources they were bringing out. And then one other thing that surprised me here is there's the U.S. Navy pilots here called the Blue Angels. It's pretty big here. So every Tuesday and Wednesday, they practice at the U.S. Naval Base, and they actually fly right over Fort Pickens. So people come here just to get a good view, see the Blue Angels fly. And just last week, they actually had their Pensacola Beach Air Show. So a ton of tourists here, a ton of traffic. That was super fun to just work around. And then next slide, please. But yeah, interpretation wise, I got to do a lot of talking. I connected with around 990 visitors, and this does include Jose during his EFTA visit. I got to give him a tour around Fort Pickens, so testing my history knowledge there. Um, and then various roving areas, whether that was the fort or just the island in general. I got to talk about the trails we have here, any birds that were around here, any fish or freshwater creatures that were around our trails. So that was always fun. And then Coastal Curiosities, I got to do 17 of those programs. I might even get to do some more. That one was one of my main ones I got to join in. So I always enjoyed that one. And I feel like I've been improving since because it's really just the topic of oceans. So we get to change it up every now and then, whether we talk about sea turtles or nesting shorebirds, or sometimes even things like astronomy. We'll bring out a solar telescope, so we'll get to look at the sun out on the beach. And then we also have Secrets of the Seashore. This one was more of a solo 30-minute talk, one of the ones I was more nervous at first about, but I got to do 6 of those programs. And most of the times I talked about our nesting shorebirds, which you'll see a bunch of these labeled throughout this presentation. And then our outreach event, our World Ocean Day, I got to do one of those. And then for Let's Go Fishing, so far we have one of those in the books with around 45 visitors. And then my next one should be in 2 days, depending on how our weather picks up. And then just to bring some attention to this blue clipboard picture, this is from a visitor telling us about a turtle stranding we had here. So it was a deceased Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. And I got to go out with our park biologist, Philip, and actually see the science behind it. Terrible circumstances since it's a deceased sea turtle. No one loves that, but science-based, it was super interesting to just see how he checks for tags. He even let me do some of the actual report, like what parts were missing or how long it's been out there. So just super interesting in general. Next slide, please. But yeah, that also includes our natural resources. So like sea turtles, we got plenty here. I will say we don't have too many leatherbacks here. The main ones we will have are loggerhead sea turtles, green sea turtles, and Kemp's Ridley turtles. And I got some of these numbers from our park biologist Philip too. So we have approximately 31 sea turtle nests right now. And on this top right picture is actually from the Navarre Beach Conservation Center. I got to visit, and they have a green sea turtle named Sweet Pea. She's going to be there for the rest of her life. She has some damages that wouldn't be permittable for her to return to the wild. She's missing some of her shell, some of her limbs from things like fishing line getting wrapped up on her. So it was just super interesting to go out there and see her and see what they actually teach for conservation. Nesting shorebirds, we have a ton. The main three I like to talk about with our visitors were the least terns, the snowy plovers, and the black skimmers, which I really wanted to see a lot of, but I only really saw about one or two on occasions. But aside from that, I saw a ton of cool birds. Osprey, we have those predatory birds. This top middle picture is actually right above my housing unit, so I can say he was my roommate. And then, yeah, we have various catch like Spanish mackerel, sea trout. Just the other day, we went ahead and caught some catfish. Next slide, please. Challenge-wise, like many of you, I was super far from home, about 1,300 miles away, and couple of days I'll be heading back to, so that'll be fun. Being away from my family, my dogs especially, I included them here. Um, Aside from that, it was really just nerves about being here. So even if it was just interpretation, I was nervous about being in a new area. It was my first time in Florida, so I had no clue what to expect. But aside from that, I've been adjusting. I think every single day I've been here has been amazing. I've learned so much every single day. Um, Aside from that, I will say Florida has some crazy weather. The humidity is pretty crazy. I'm from El Paso, where it's necessarily dry all the time. So here, I've just been getting adjusted to that. And then right now, we were dealing with some of the after effects of Tropical Storm Bertha, which is why I'm in this hotel. We went ahead and closed down Fort Pickens, and I went ahead and evacuated out to Gulf Breeze. So that's been super cool. And with the conclusion of this program, just everything pretty hectic, but for the most part, I've gotten used to it. I enjoy it a lot. It's beautiful out here. And what else? Long drives, you will get that here. It's bouncing from island to island. So just making sure I stayed prepared if I needed any groceries. I try to line that up with my days off. If I wanted to go to a bigger supermarket, like a super Walmart, that might add an additional 10, 15 minutes to my journey, but that was all whatever. It was just fun to drive around as well. Next slide, please. But yeah, just a general overview. I've had a blast being out here. I've met some amazing people, and I always recall my interview with Jose and getting the actual offer for this internship. And at first, I truly didn't see myself coming all the way out here. I genuinely had thoughts of declining it. Um, I gave myself a day to really think about it, think about all the opportunities I get, think about how this would benefit me. And right now, I'm giving this presentation about the conclusion of it. So I'm super proud of myself, just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and just learning so much here. Things like getting more into birding, learning about saltwater fishing, which is so different from freshwater fishing. So that's been amazing to just learn, and learning from all the locals and everyone here has just been amazing. The history here is really cool. My dad drove with me, and he had a blast just running around the fort. I had to hold him back sometimes, so that was really fun. My supervisor, Ranger Cass, he's been one of the most supportive people since day one, even just when I was being interviewed by him. When I think of the ideal ranger, I truly think of Kaz. He's just such a cool guy. He holds high regard for being a park ranger, and I just hope to continue learning from him. And then next slide, please. But yeah, just thank you to EFTA. Thank you, all the EFTA interns. It's been super cool meeting you. It was my first time in Colorado too, so even that was completely brand new to me. I met amazing people here at Gulf Island, so thank them, my supervisors, all our other rangers here, our other interns, our volunteers, our store staff. Really, every single person here has been welcoming since day one. Um, Thank you to Gulf Breeze. They have amazing food here. I get to eat fresh seafood, so that's been one of my highlights here. Um, and then thank you to my family. I know it was super hard for them for me to come out here on my own. They've been supportive since I got this offer, so I'm super appreciative and just thank you in general.
Nice job, Gabriel. Next, we have Enoch. Also, beautiful photos on the beach.
Thank you.
Ooh, all right. Hello. My name is Enoch, and I worked also in National Capital Parks East, like Amani did, and I was at Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens and also Anacostia Park this summer. All right. So here's some of the stuff I learned. One of them, the biggest one probably, was how to write program outlines and how to write like an SOP. So I got a lot of training on how to make programs so that they're inclusive and easy to understand, and then also making an SOP that anyone could pick up and then easily run that program if you weren't around without having to ask you a bunch of questions or like run around and look for specific supplies. So that was a lot of fun to like make programs that are going to keep happening after I'm gone. Also, kind of just like a brief, like learning history of Kenilworth Park and the local area. I'm native to DC, but I hadn't spent much time in this area. And also, Kenilworth started as like a historical site from Walter B. Shaw and Helen Fowler starting their own like commercial business. So I had to learn like the whole history of how the park came to come into the like to come to be property of National Park Service, and that's something that we cover on our garden tours and stuff. So it was something I had to like learn pretty early on to be able to help out with programming at Kenilworth. So that was a lot of fun. Also, birding identification skills. My birding skills weren't super great before I started this internship, and I'm still working on making them better. But having so many cool birders and also like dedicated volunteers at Kenilworth definitely made it easier to get accustomed to like the, you know, common birds that we'd see coming through the park, and then help teach other people about those birds. Answered a lot of questions about yellow-crowned night herons this summer. Another one was how to plan and organize large events. So most of my internship has been leading up to the Lotus and Lily Festival, which we did last weekend. It was over Saturday and Sunday, and on Saturday we had 8,000 visitors, and on Sunday we had 15,000. So we are only a 17-acre park. So hosting 17,000 people in a 18,000 people in a 17-acre park was a hassle, but it was a really cool challenge to take on. Seeing how much work had to go into that on the maintenance side, the interpretation side, and also just the logistical side was really, really cool. And getting to meet a bunch of people from all over the country. We had the Bison team come through Kenilworth. They're like a maintenance team that goes around to parks all around the country that need really hands-on, intensive labor to be done to meet deadlines. So they came by and were doing a bunch of work, sprucing up our facilities and also just doing like tree trimming and things like that. So that was really cool. Networking skills, like the picture in the bottom left, I got to talk to a lot of the interns that were doing stuff in NACE, and seeing what they were doing to help the Lotus and Lily Festival get put on, and then also just learning more about the work that they do, and learning how that all kind of is one big effort to get conservation and stewardship done, even if you're doing like environmental policy or you're doing something with like government planning. All of it is really important to make sure that people can be out in the parks and enjoy nature. And also the challenges of running a permitting office. Two of the park rangers that work at Kenilworth for most of the time that I was there also work in the permitting office down at NACE headquarters. Uh, our national capital parks, but specifically National Capital Parks East, have a bunch of little like kiosks or like pavilions that people can rent out to use for parties or whatever event that they want to do. But all of those require a permit. So pretty much every day we're answering calls about someone needing a permit for a specific park or whatever. And for some reason, all of those calls get directed to Kenilworth. So I was sending a lot of messages, giving a lot of emails, giving a lot of people information about what areas of the park they can and can't go to. And just that alone, I mean, was enough work to keep a bunch of people busy for the whole week. So that was really interesting to see that side of running a national park site. Do the next slide. All right. Some of my challenges. So I was hoping to be able to lean into my strong suit of knowing like aquatic plants and native plants and things like that. But the biggest attraction at Kenilworth are non-native lotuses. So the biggest problem for me was learning all of the varietals of sacred lotus. There is a Native American lotus, Nelumbo lutea. So that was really cool to learn about. I didn't know about those. And since then, I've gone out to McKee Beschers to see one naturally like not cultivated American lotus. So that was really cool. That's something I probably would never have done if I didn't know about that. I didn't get this experience. Not being able to fish in Kenilworth. So we have a bunch of ponds that you can see fish swimming around in. Clearly, a bunch of like little bluegill. There's mosquito fish, mummy chogs, which are in the killifish family. And then also every once in a while we get like crappie and things like that. But we're not allowed to fish in the ponds. So instead, for most of the programming I did focused around fishing, we did pond dips. So we would get macroinvertebrates out of like the pond muck to show kids, teach them about like, not like fish aren't the only thing that are living in ponds. There's also this huge array of macroinvertebrate species that are kind of more important than the fish species in keeping the ecosystem in balance. So that was really fun. Learning to coordinate with multiple friends groups for programming. So the friend groups at Anacostia and Kenilworth are the ones who are doing more of the formal programming or interpretation. A lot of the interpretation that goes on at Kenilworth on the ranger side is really informal. It's only 3 garden tours that are done every day, and on slow days, sometimes you don't get a chance to really do that. And then the only formal established program that there was the Tuesday Birdwalks, which I got the pleasure of joining and learning a lot from those people, those volunteers and birders. So I would have to kind of collaborate with the friends groups, either at Anacostia Park or Kenilworth Park, to get my program set up. So it was kind of just like an extra step to take to get those programs going, but it was a lot of fun. And I also met a lot of cool people who had really special appreciation for the parks. And they gave me a lot of good tips on how to reach out to the correct people. And then also kind of just some pointers on what the best way to run some of those programs were. Another thing was finding a way to make DC special for out-of-town visitors. So a lot of the times, especially earlier on in the season, a lot of the park visitors we got were people who kind of just, landed in DC and Googled like things to do near me. And I guess we were one of the things that showed up. So a lot of the people didn't really have that in about like wanting to learn about birds or wanting to learn about the lotus and lily or any of the native species we had there. They were kind of just looking for a way to kill 40 minutes. So it was always a pretty interesting challenge finding something to get their attention, or kind of, asking like pointed questions to see what exactly they were interested in doing. Or maybe even just giving them some tips about other places to go in the DC area that were like natural and that I have more experience with, and I know that they might have enjoyed a little bit more based on the stuff that they were telling me. I know I told Jose to go to Glenstone. I don't know if he checked it out, but I don't know. If you're in the DMV area, You should go to Glenstone Museum. It's pretty cool. And then also, yeah, learning how to interpret historical heritage alongside nature. So for a lot of those garden tours that we were doing, I would try and kind of like get all the history out of the way and then just show people all the native plants that I thought were cool and the birds and the fish. So yeah, the history stuff isn't really my strong suit, but I found a way to make it informative and kind of to reach certain audiences. Helen Fowler is a really cool lady, or was a really cool lady. She was the first lady in DC to get her CDL. So I would always make sure to tell like women, but especially like young girls about that, just so they can see that, like environmental science isn't a place just for men and things like that. And especially since she was doing it in like the early 1900s, even more of a reason to celebrate her. So that was really cool. And then also something that came along with these challenges, I know a lot, or I think I know a lot about aquatic species, like riparian species, emergent species in the DMV area. But like since I had to learn more about lotus and lily, I kind of like really hit the books, and I like tried to like fill any gaps I had in my knowledge of these plants. So I was reading a lot of field guides, I was doing a lot of research, and I was going to different parks that I hadn't been to in this area to find more species that I hadn't seen before. And just today, that picture in the bottom left with those little yellow flowers, I found some bladderwort in one of our ponds, which is a carnivorous plant species that uses little sacs underwater to suck up macroinvertebrates or like different like bacteria and stuff like that. So that was really cool and something that I would not have noticed if I hadn't been really out there trying to decipher all the different lotus varietals. All right, next slide. Okay, yes. So like Imani was talking about, we got to go to the Patuxent Research Refuge. Probably the most amount of photos I took throughout this entire internship happened on that day, just because every single thing we saw, I thought was so cool. So some of the successes were a new perspective on my career. So I have been fortunate enough to be able to work with Montgomery Parks for coming on 4 years now in their interpretation division. So a lot of the stuff that we were learning about in Colorado and that we got the opportunity to do through this internship, I had experience in doing before. So this was kind of eye-opening, like learning that I enjoy interpretation a lot, but I think my calling really truly is natural resource management and research in general. So getting to go out to the Patuxent Research Refuge was a lot of fun. And also a really, really great networking experience. So I got to make a lot of cool connections with the natural resource staff at NPS. Shout out to Samantha Higgins, Sharifa, and JT. They were all biotechs on the NACE staff this year. And they gave me a lot of pointers on how they got those positions, what work they did in their grad programs, and kind of just how to navigate getting a job in the federal government. So that was really cool. So yeah, we got to conduct some sites, visit some sites conducting research, and I got to ask a bunch of students and also researchers questions about like how they got those jobs and what exactly they were doing. One really cool thing was when we went to the bee lab, I was asking a lot of questions about to Sam Grogi, who if you don't know him, he's kind of just like the bee guy, especially for anything east of the Mississippi. He can identify pretty much any bee, which is insane. The bee lab has a bunch of like classified bees already that are about 100 years old. It's pretty wild. So getting to hear him talk about how like if you were managing bee species, basically you're just managing native plant species, and getting to ask him questions about which kinds of plant species the bees were like targeting the most, and hearing that it was mostly Asteraceae and Solidago, like your sunflower and goldenrod families, was really cool because I've done a lot of invasive removal and native planting, and we focused mostly on putting Asteraceae and Solidago in the ground. So it was kind of a full circle moment for me. I was like, nice, I've helped out the bee population because I was doing stuff that I knew was beneficial anyway. So yeah, in talking to those people, I got feedback on my resume and job applications. Shout out to Lex for letting me know that a lot of the interp and education jobs were dropping on USA Jobs recently, because that was totally off my radar, and I got to apply to a couple jobs because of that. So thank you for doing that, and always being vigilant in the group chat. That was really helpful. Thank you very much. And then I also got to use my GIS skills to make a map of the lotus varieties that were blooming in our ponds this summer. So yeah, I have background with GIS, and that was really, really cool. I really enjoyed that, and I love making maps. So I'm always down to make a map. All right, next slide. So some of the programs and events we did the Junior Ranger Angler. I held my first one last Wednesday, and I'm doing another one this Saturday during the Friday and Saturday Night Lights events. So that's out at Anacostia Park. So I really enjoy that just because it's an area that doesn't have a lot of nature. Anacostia Park, their biggest attraction is a big roller rink. It's the only roller rink that is on National Park's property, I think. I don't know. But that was really cool. So getting to teach those kids about fishing, and then seeing them get excited about it and wanting to come back and do it again was really rewarding and very fulfilling. The Tuesday bird walks that I talked about, those were, I got to shadow them and do lead a couple of my own on Saturdays. So I've done one, and I have one more to go. So I'm also very excited about that. Just general visitor center duties as well. Holding that on the VC, talking to any of the visitors that come in, giving them a rundown of what we've seen in the park that day and what they can expect to do. And then also just giving them a little bit more information about the native species that are there. The biggest one was Lotus and Lily Festival. That was really fun. I got to table with the nature team. So we got split up into nature, history, and arts and crafts. So I was doing nature out on the boardwalk. I got to talk to people about dragonflies for like 10 hours. That was really cool. And I also learned more about dragonflies than I ever had before. And then also Weed Warrior cleanup events. So the Weed Warriors are people that go all throughout the DMV and do stuff in Montgomery County especially. So I had met a lot of the Weed Warrior people that showed up to Kenilworth. So it was cool to see some old faces and just give them a rundown of what I was doing this summer. And they were all really proud of me and wanted to hear more about the experiences. So that was also a lot of fun to tell them about that stuff. And then shout out to Friends of Kenilworth. They were really instrumental in getting a lot of the school programs together and reaching out to people and just doing a lot of the logistical aspects of running these programs this summer. All right. So some sites visited and stats. So like Imani said, NACE is kind of made up of a bunch of small little park parcels. So I got to go out to a bunch of parks this summer and learn a lot more about what DC has to offer nature-wise. So I was at Fort DuPont, Rock Creek Park, Patuxent Research Refuge, Greenbelt Park, Anacostia Park, Frederick Douglass House, the National Mall, and the USGS Lab. So I also got to go to AREC, which is it's not part of National Park Service, it's part of the Department of the Environment for DC. So I got to talk to them and ask them about what they do and how they got those positions. And that was a lot of fun. The only picture I got of Lotus and Lily Festival, since we were so slammed, was that picture on the bottom. We had a bunch of different cultural events going on that day, music, dance, arts and crafts. So that was a Indian drumming group that was doing some really cool like call and response with the crowd. And that the person taking the photo of them is Gabby, who was doing all the social media stuff for us this summer, and I got to interact with a bit. That picture in the middle is the Patuxent Research Refuge, and some of the stats for this summer. I got to shadow 8 bird walks, and I led 2, or I'm going to lead. I've led 1 so far. I'm going to lead another. I've hit 56 species of birds identified. So that's including all the birds I had seen before, but like 45 of them are from my time here at Kenilworth. So that has been a lot of fun. 2 fishing programs conducted, over 1,000 visitor interactions. That's probably close to 2,000 at this point, just because Lotus and Lily, I did like, I think it was like around 500 people on those 2 days. We were doing clickers every hour, and every hour was about like 90 to 120 people. So that was really cool. I've given over 25 garden tours. I have 89 iNaturalist entries and building. I had probably done like 3 more today. I got mentioned in the Friends of Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens newsletter right when I started, um, just so people knew who I was, and if they ever saw me in the park, they were comfortable with coming up and asking me questions. And then, yeah, the one festival, Lotus and Lily. So 5,000 attendees on Saturday, and then over 15,000 on Sunday. Yeah, thank you all so much. Special thanks to all the EFTA staff. You guys made this possible. I, just seeing all of the logistics of the Colorado trip and getting supplies out to everybody and all of this stuff was very, very impressive. I could not do it. I know that for a fact. That's not my strong suit. And then also all the NACE staff that supported me and put up with me this summer, me asking all these questions and stuff. I'm glad they were there to help support me, and hopefully I get to work with them in the future. I don't know.
Hello. Here. Okay.
We can hear you,
I
Maddie.
okay. I
And
wanted to
great
make
job,
sure
Enoch.
my Wi-Fi is a little bad. Um, Hi, I'm Maddie. I was at well, I still am at the Kimono National Historical Park, and here are some pictures at the bottom that I changed up. But yay. Okay, so this is our planned event schedule. Anything you see that's crossed out has been canceled. Our junior birder event was canceled because there was a really bad storm and there was hail smacking my poor car. And then our fish discovery and fishing derby was canceled from the smoke. In the photos, you can see the air quality was very hazardous and it was really bad, and my car was covered in ash. But all the other events have been really fun, and we have a fishing event on Saturday, and I'm hoping that it doesn't rain. I'm going to do a little dance. Hopefully, it'll keep the rain away, but and here are some event photos. Yesterday, we did a fishing discovery out at Eagle Harbor, which is like 30 some minutes away, but we had a bunch of people. We were kind of surprised on how many people were there, but I like to include a lot of these pictures because there's some kids that have never caught fish before or like never seen certain birds before, like the little tree swallow going into its nest, or the professor from tech teaching kids about binoculars and how to use them, a frog, honorable mention, some geese, and then some boat. Yes. And then some general stats. We had 9 events, 12 total, but there were some canceled. Then we did 5 blogs. I did one pop-up for birds, and then here soon I'm going to do a bat one, and I'm super excited. I taught 46 kids to fish, and I taught 12 kids to bird. And then I banded 12 actual birds and then 56 kids that were pretending to be birds. And they loved showing their wingspan. And they'd be like, I'm gonna fly to Florida. And I'm like, yeah, make it there. You got this. And my site has like 22 partner sites, but I was able to visit 8. So I think that's pretty good. Yay. Okay, so challenges. Obviously the smoke. There was times I could not even breathe. It was so bad. Another thing I struggled with was computers. I'm so bad at computers, but I'm good now. And there was also some technological issues where I couldn't access certain things. I was bringing bird programs also to the park for the first time, so I built a lot of programs for birds, which was really fun. Um, my housing had no windows. So I could not see the outside world when I got home. There was a week I was sick, and that whole week I was sick, I had not seen grass in a whole week. And the only thing outside I saw was the Weather Channel on my TV, and that was my only way to connect with the world outside. Um, Also, we're in a kind of rural area, so finding my very fancy cat food was really hard. And then obviously, Michigan's weather is very unpredictable, so we had a few issues with that. But we're going. Yes, Junebug is very fancy and needs the very fancy food that you can only find 2 hours away. And here's some outside of office stuff, some pictures that are outside of the Quinoa area. We have some Junebug pictures. She went everywhere with me. We explored all of the Quinoa together. We went all the way up to Copper Harbor, and then we went all the way down to the Houghton and Hancock Bridge Festival. That's where she's in a little dress with her lamb chop. We also went and looked for rocks on the Superior area, and she's in a little jacket and her coat. And I also got to bird band, which was really cool with some Michigan Tech students. And we saw a bald eagle and a bald eagle nest. That was also really cool. And then here is a picture of baby robins. Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Genevieve, and I'm the Fish and Feathers intern at Missouri National Recreational River, which is actually the largest river in North America. People think it's the Mississippi, but it's actually the Missouri because it's 2,341 miles in length. Yeah. So here's some statistics. Over 2,530 miles total commuting. That's just from my apartment in Nebraska to the headquarters in Yankton, South Dakota. Over 1,000 visitor interactions, 250 kids I taught to fish, 50 kayak miles I kayaked, 20 partnerships cooperated, 12 fish I caught, 6 pop up programs I assisted in, 5 library outreach event programs, 3 bumblebees netted, 3 piping plover chicks banded, 2 departments I shadowed, 1 birding speech, 1 bird walk, and 1 department I work in. No day is quite the same at my site. And upon arriving, I anticipated smaller events just because the site might have not have been as popular, but I was blatantly wrong, and fortunately wrong. Oftentimes, we have over 300 contacts, which is amazing, and each week has been really just full of activities. The most frequent ones are the fishing clinics, kayak clinics, music at the Meridian on Thursdays, Freedom 250 Fridays, and various library cooperative events. We kickstarted the summer with Party in the Park, which showcased all of Yankton, South Dakota's summertime adventures. And then we had a tent for Homestead Day where we showed kids and instructed them on how to make a Lewis and Clark Peace Medal. And then shortly after, we had the 605 Unity Jam, which was a powwow and fishing derby. At this event, various tribes had a fashion show, and the kids were able to show off their cultural wear, which I thought was really amazing. It was their first ever fashion show, so I could tell they were nervous, but they really were glad after. We all like clapped for them, and it's pretty cool. Um, it's just really heartwarming. So yeah, and then the Vermilion and Yankton Library team up with our park, and we've done so many different events this summer. We've done a fossil program. We've done a bird walk, which I led, a binocular program, which I made a speech for, and then a couple fishing clinics. So yeah, and the Freedom 250 Friday event is basically a pop up program in the Territorial Capitol building. And what we do is we just like make a craft with the kids and then we'll teach them about various things. So one of the other interns here had already chose their pop-up Freedom 250 on birds. So I helped with it and I made a checklist with over 10 common birds in the area. But my Freedom 250 event was about insects. And so I had made an insect matching game. I made brochures for the adults to take home, and I led two crafts. So here are the two brochures I made. On the left is the insect brochure. So I wanted to include general tick ID because ticks are very common in the area, and definitely adults and children should be worried about them. And then there's also like a thing on insect orders, a short difference highlighting between dragonflies and damselflies, moths and butterflies, and then a call to action. And then on the right is a brochure I made about birds that were formerly endangered at my park. So there's like a short thing on bird banding, species recovery stories, and just like identification of the two formerly endangered birds, which are the least interior tern and the piping plover. And it has a call to action as well. Okay, so this is my challenges and learning. So my main challenge was adjusting to rural life. Yankton's much different than a large city. Things here are very quiet on Sundays, which at first was like, is something wrong? But then I shortly was like, no, that's just how life goes in a small town. And I was extremely scared I'd be alone, but my experience has been far from it. I've gone to crafting events, I visited various fossil beds, and even got like points of contact with paleontologists. And now this park might actually work with the paleontologists, which is really cool. Um, I went to my first ever rodeo, and I did my first ever camping trips at the Badlands. And I always wanted to go to the Badlands. I made my fourth grade presentation about the Badlands, and I got to talk to the rangers there. It was just so amazing. Yeah, and so, yeah, I'm grateful I met so many locals, which have simultaneously been my tour guide and friend. And I've grown familiar with driving. I learned how to drive a trailer, which I was extremely scared of doing, but it's actually pretty easy. And my 30-mile commute to work every day is honestly really relaxing. I'm going to miss watching the sunsets over farm fields. So, leading was another thing that was also challenging to me. Um, I think it's just the unfamiliarity with the area, but my colleagues like showed me that's just like a silly fear because they definitely have supported me throughout this entire internship. And I led fishing clinics. I think I've led around three of them, yeah. And then obviously I led the bird programs with the library, and then I even led a kayak clinic, which went very successful. Yeah, and so what I learned during this adventure, I learned a ton. I've interacted with people from across the country, most notably on a rove where we roved and we met people that were biking across the country, which was just insane to me. People 50, 60, 70 years old biking across the country. It was really incredible to talk to them. They had so much stories and all different types of interests too. So I was able to share some information with them. And I learned local history here about Lewis and Clark, native tribes, and both fish and bird species of the area. Through this experience, I have learned to treat safety as a priority. I attended Operation Leadership, was trained on how to operate a trailer, which I mentioned, um, became kayak safety training certified, and learned National Park Service standards. I was able to shadow the river safety plan, and I contributed to ideas for the park's river highway marker plan. I participated in bumblebee field work and was able to use a professional camera to captivate volunteers' eager moments at Paddle with a Purpose. Next one. Throughout my internship, free time, and work, I've been on the search to see a piping plover. Um, and every time I would just see killdeer. It went as far as the killdeer making a nest at my headquarters. So this is kind of unfortunate, right? but I could probably say that yesterday I finally saw a piping plover. I actually saw over 20 piping plovers because I was able to partner up with the U.S. Geological Survey and do the bird banding on the chicks. So it was really incredible. Just seeing 20 in a day and talking with just people. There's a couple grad students there that are making their research paper on the piping plover. And one of my pop-up programs was on the endangered bird species, but these people, they're just like masters of the bird. So it's incredible. I'm definitely going to have to do that pop-up program one more time because I have so much more information to share now. So yeah, and then with the fish, so I grew up fishing with the spin cast rod, but I will say it was amazing to learn how to like use a fly rod in the Colorado workshop. Unfortunately, we just didn't really use that at my site. Um, but I learned that a lot could be used as bait. So I saw a guy catch a 50-pound catfish using invasive carp species, which is like, what? That's so cool. And I also used minnows and crawfish as baits to catch small and largemouth bass. But mainly this summer we caught bluegill because we'll use the worms. But I just interacted with so many like fishermen and fisherwomen, just like all everybody. And they taught me so much, like the invasive carp. I didn't know you could use it as bait, but yeah, since they're invasive, you can use them, so it's cool. And while I have so much stories to recount, and I wish I could tell you guys everything, I can't really fit the whole entire summer on one slideshow. So I'm gonna say my top 5 favorite birds I saw. So obviously the piping plover, Baltimore orioles, bald eagles, rose-breasted grosbeaks, and least interior terns. I also held a least interior tern chick, so that was cool too. My favorite thing about this experience and number one takeaway is that wherever you go, as long as you search for it, community will find you. Although Yankton is a small town, this place will forever have a huge impact on my life, and the people here have truly made me feel like it's my home away from home. Thank you, EFTA, for everything. Good job for all the interns. Your guys' presentations are so like amazing. I love hearing about what you guys have done so far. And thanks to my amazing staff at this site. Thank you.
Nice job, Jen. Next, we have Kat, who will be our last presenter for today.
We cannot hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna
Now
make
we can hear
it.
you.
Okay, lovely, lovely. All right, hey y'all. Nice speaking to y'all again. I was at the Christensen National Historic Site, the Salt River National Preserve, National Park and Ecological Preserve, and the Buck Island National Reef. Hold on, where's my slides?
Let's see.
We
Looks
added
like
them on there.
Try refreshing it.
I could also share my screen. It's no problem at all.
No, they were added. I think they just haven't been refreshed. Yeah, they're in there.
There it is. Awkward. Okay, that part. Yeah, these are the names of all my parks, and these are just a few pictures of them. So just to give a brief overview of each one of them, the Christensen National Historic Site was a old Danish fort, and the park also includes a few other buildings like a old Danish church, a old scale house, and like a customs building. And just for context, this fort was made out of yellow bricks that was carried to the island as ballast for ships to kind of wait to hold wait, to placement wait for ships when it came to dock, and then the ships left with like sugarcane or molasses and different produce from the island. So it kind of puts into context how much boats or how much ships came to island and how much resources that was produced on my island to make an entire colony rich. and yet we are in the places that we're in today. Onward. And there's also Buck Island, which is said to have been by John F. Kennedy one of the most beautiful marine gardens a point in time, and it was acquired in 1961 under the National Park Service. And we have Salt River. Salt River Bay is what it's known as, and this is where Columbus would have landed. This would have been the second stop on Columbus's journey. And this is will also be where the Cape of Arrows took place, where the Kalinago people and the Taino people, the indigenous people of the island, would have basically fought or like, quote unquote have war with Columbus, not allowing him to even step foot on the island. One man even died. Next slide. Yeah, so some of the things that I did was we hosted these things called Art in the Park, where we just allowed like creative expression to happen. And we kind of hosted it because we were going to do a mural in Salt River, and we just wanted to get inspiration from the public to add to that mural. We had a youth handlining event in collaboration with DPNR, Department of Planning and Natural Resources. We had the Caribbean Center for Boys and Girls come and visit. We gave them a bird walk and a tour and things like that. And we also had way more than 5 bird walks, but I know we had 5 for sure. But I remember doing way more than 5 bird walks at the fort, and we kind of included some like historical context as well. So it's kind of cool to collaborate the two. At Buck Island, we did sea turtle nest tracking. We did a bird hike, not a bird walk, because it was much more of a vigorous terrain. It was most definitely a hike, but it was still cool. So we did a bird hike. We did trail clearing with YCC to be able to see a salt pond. And we even saw, oh my gosh, Larissa! I forgot the bird name is
Black neck stilt.
Girl, thank you. We saw a black neck stilt. I think one of them were nesting. I think we saw one of them nesting, and we went back for following days to just look that it was there. And then one of like the last days we went, it was not there. So I hope they're okay. We did some fencing and signage for like some lease terns that we thought were nesting, but it seemed like they were just like populating and just vibing on that part of the beach. So we just left the fencing up so that they could have that space to enjoy. I also was able to participate in looking, like actually shadowing over my supervisor, Larissa, and another employee of the parks do coral treatment, which is pretty cool. I didn't have a diving certification, so I wasn't able to really go like submerge completely, but I was able to just look on top until I saw a barracuda and I got scared and I went back to the boat and had to wait. And I also did like GIS shoreline data, which was kind of cool to have to walk around the whole perimeter of the island. And over there at Salt River, we did a few bird walks over there. We even finished one today with some other interns, some sea turtle interns, and we did a multitude of other things that's not really documented here on this page. Yeah, propagating mangroves, and we did some kayaking and such and such. I also did things that was not really a part of national parks, like ground lizard surveying, which was like in collaboration with Fish and Wildlife, and even USDA was a part of that too, where we would go. We have this species called the St. Croix ground lizard, and they populate Buck Island and they populate Green Key and this other man-made island called Ruth Island. Anyway, it's pretty cool to count those. So that's like 500 plus interactions. Yeah, onward. So yeah, these are my graphics. That's some of the graphics that I've made. I've made way more graphics than these on the page, but these are some of my favorites. We did like this bird bingo. Okay, first of all, everything that I did, I had to do it times 3 because I was at 3 different parks. So that's kind of why you see somewhat of a repetition, but if you really look at it, they're all different. So yeah, some of the birds that you'll see on close to like Christiansted, you'll see like some cranes, you'll see some, we have like Zenaida dove all over. Like Zenaida doves are so all over the place. We also have this red jungle fowl, which is a chicken that's also all over the island. You'll see it everywhere. And we also have the white crowned pigeon that you see on Buck Island. You'll see those stilts that we mentioned. You'll see the oyster catchers. You'll see the banana quits. You'll see those mohawk hummingbirds. Forgot the name. Sorry. You know, night heron, green herons, blue herons. You'll see everything. And I also made some like obviously some island specific or St. Croix specific fishing material also. And just made some other games that wasn't taught to me during the workshop, and that was kind of cool to create some new games. Like this game at the top on the left corner was like a magnetic fishing game, and we kind of cut out those fishes, super glued some magnets on it, put it in a tank, and we had some like kids or even some adults who wanted to participate, and like we put a magnet on a little fishing line and they kind of just like play fishing. Next. This is my squatty. This is my supervisor right next to me who I worked closely with, Larissa Sweeney. And also my other supervisor, Kristen Ewan. We was always like in the same office, so we often like bounced ideas around each other, and it was really such like a great opportunity because they're both really intelligent and just like not even pertaining to fish and feathers, you'll learn a whole bunch of other things that is still going to be useful to me as I continue my career in like environmentalism and things like that. And also my EFTA squad, Mr. Barrientos and Miss Shelda, who who visited me. So thank you all for being just like great people. Next. And Claudia and Stephanie, didn't forget about you. So some observations. Um, so I was focusing on like outreach and things, but even to outreach, there's like so much you have to do before you even talk to people. So like I already mentioned, I did graphics, so obviously you have to have some creativity and some like artistic aspect. Like we was collecting data, often statistics comes with data, learning the science behind things, historical context, you know, the policies to do the SOPs, and to even do like when planning an event, you had to do this like paperwork and make all of these considerations. And there's a whole lot of things that you got to do before you actually do an event and talk to people. And something that I forgot to mention, one of the things that was cool to do for the park was to like revitalize the birding data, because I feel the park usually does a survey every December. So we got to do that again, even in the summertime, and kind of revitalize and refresh some of that data. So yeah, all these different industries, all these different practices and skills work in unison. So I was happy to be a part of that. Next slide. Yeah, so my favorite part was the interpretation, the education, and the outreach. Because I feel like that was what I was trained to do, and that was the whole significance about the fish and is, you know, you're interacting with people. And yeah, I believe this is what mattered most. And for me, what I enjoyed most was the youth, all the youths that I interacted with. And we had like this mango melee. It's like this festival based around the mango season, which is right now. And we had a lot of different people come into that, a lot of them being young Virgin Islanders. And it was just a great time just speaking with the youth and interacting with them in a special way, and just leaving a good impression on them about their own wildlife and things like that. Some of the challenges that I forgot to mention, I didn't really mention it because there wasn't actually much challenges. I feel like in general, life has its challenges, and I think like just everything there is like a quote unquote challenge. So there's nothing necessarily for me to like target. But if I did have to target one, it would be my timeliness. Coming to work on time had not been the most challenging thing, honestly. But other than that, I think everything was pretty copacetic. Like if there was ever like a problem or a situation that arise, we just figure out a solution, and that was pretty much what it was. Next slide. Yep. So this internship was just like 10 out of 10. Like from since I got two fishing lines, it was already it was already a win for me, honestly. So the fact that I got new gear, even like a water bottle, and now I have a new hobby and I know how to do it well and like, sustainably with how to handle the fish when you catch them and things like that. So I've been doing like my own fishing since I came back home, which is super cool. I have new information and new connection with my island and a lot more of a larger network in the environmental field and a lot more relationships. And these are just pictures of me at work and me talking to the Montessori kids over there on the right side. That was challenging. They were like under 5, time span short, but they got they got a good experience too. Next slide. Yeah, what's the impact? So I asked this question because this was one of the questions that was often asked when creating, like when planning something. I forgot what the official term is, but that thing that you have to fill out before doing an event. And the question that was always brought up was, what's the impact? Like you can't even put like a stake in the ground and different things like that over there at the park. And the question was always, what's the impact? And I could have sent a lot of things that was outwardly from me, but the most I find that was impacted was honestly me personally and how much I learned on this internship is going to be with me forever. And it's just like I can't not share what I've learned in this internship with other people. Like I can't say for sure that I'll work with NPS, in the near future, but at the same time, all of the information that I learned from NPS is I'm gonna spew that out tomorrow to somebody most likely. So I just think it's so amazing how, over the span of 2 months, I've learned so much about my island. I've gathered such a in-depth connection, even with birds. Like y'all already know, I did not get the hype with the birds during the workshop. I did not understand the hype, but now I get the hype. I get the hype now. And I'm over here now geeking out about birds, and that's a big turnaround for me. Next slide. Okay, I think this is the last slide, and I think the rest is gonna be pictures. But something that I wanted to mention, I have this slide called Pursuing Innovation, and I bring this up because okay, so this is a summertime thing. Fish and Feathers is a summertime internship, but yet I want this information to be able to be continuous throughout the year. And I find that what I observed with NPS is that a lot of the employees focus on a lot of other things. Like the staff there, they're like hardworking and they do various amounts of things, and everybody's kind of in their own pocket doing what they have to do in their own pocket. So I was thinking Fish and Feathers, or the information or the content of what Fish and Feathers is, should be shared amongst like Fish and Wildlife. And this lady named Tony, who is in this picture, she has like this bird sanctuary. It's the only one on island, and she basically takes care of like harmed birds or different type of birds. That's like a falcon in her arm right now that she's sharing with some children. And just to do partnerships like that, and I heard about this program called Optics for the Tropics, and just kind of like partnering these different type of funding opportunities with the public, with public institutions, like what Tony organization is doing, to kind of have this information to be continuous throughout the year. So I'd like to talk about that with whoever. I think me and Jose, me and Mr. Barrientos already started talking about that, and I'd like to further that conversation. Thank you. No, you're good. So yeah, I just want to shout out the people that I met on this internship. Shout out my roommates. Shout out my girl Joan. I don't know if she's on here, but Joan was so awesome. Really appreciate her. My supervisors, I made a lot of cool friends on this internship, met a lot of cool people, and I'm really thankful to now have a few friends dispersed around the world. So that's pretty cool. Next slide. And this is the last one. And this is kind of me just in action. Some of the things that we were doing, some photos I took of some birds. And yeah, this was a 10 out of 10. This was a win for me. This was a side quest, but side quest well done. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, all of you. So good.
Great job, everybody. Wow. These were awesome presentations.
Amazing. Thank you everyone for sharing today. And to those of you that presented, amazing job. Tomorrow we will finish our third part of the Fish and Feathers webinar. And we even have some highlights and a few folks to recognize. So you don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. But thank you all for staying for this long. I know we ran a little over time, but we appreciate you being here and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
See y'all
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Great job, everybody.